Today we're going to paint a Venerable Dreadnought, and I did a little bit of a conversion work on this miniature, so you may want to watch the other video showing you how I did the conversion parts on the miniature. And I started off with a Caliban green undercoat, and next I started with a little bit of lead belcher to get the silver started, and then I was using iron breaker. After the iron breakers had time to dry, some nut oil has been applied, which helps to darken down the silver areas, and when that's dry I've then applied some Ruined Van Steel, and for this I've literally just covered the edges, and I didn't apply all the silvers first and then apply the nut oil because I wanted to pick out those edges and give them a little bit of a sharpness, and yet I wanted to keep the silvers quite dark. For the first highlight with the green, we applied Cabalite green, and then when it was dry we applied another coat of Cabalite green, but the second coat is slightly further up, so it helps to give a slight gradient of lightness from the Caliban green to the Calibite. After this has had time to dry, I did a 3 parts mix of 3 parts Lamia medium to 1 part Caliban green, and this went all over the green areas, and this helps to therefore tie in the two colours. Next I used Warpstone Glow on the same areas, again slightly further up each time, and again the same mix of Calibite green was then applied over the top afterwards. And next for the green, Moot green was applied, and this is more for the edges and the very upmost parts, just to pick out real excessive highlights. And the very last highlight for the green areas is White Scar, and this tends to be on areas where, for example, you've got corners where light would bounce off the corners, or where light might be bouncing around circular parts of the miniature, like for example on the parafist. Now for the windows, initially I started off with the gold, and I applied the gold into other areas where gold is going to go. It makes sense to do all of it at the same time. And then for the inside of the windows I used Moot green because I wanted something nice and bright, but I wanted to still use a colour which would tie in with the rest of the miniature, hence why I'm using a green. And when that's dry, Hex-Ray Flame has been thinned down with some Lamia medium, and I want the Hex-Ray Flame to stick to the outer edges of the Moot green areas of the windows to help to give somewhat of a bit of a glow and make it look like the inside of the windows where it's the brightest. And here you can see I'm applying a gloss varnish to give it that nice shiny look for the representation of there being glass. For the plasma weapon I skipped forward a little bit. I used a blood red for the armoured housing of the weapon, and I used Riser Rust to cover around the edges just to pick out a little bit of a detail, but I didn't apply a colour in regards to the depths because I wanted to keep it quite bright. And at this part you can see I'm applying Corax White for the coils of the weapon, and this will probably take 2 coats to get a good base coat. White Scar was applied on the very top edge on both the left and the right, just to give a slight bit of a variation in the colour. And next I thinned down some Night Horde Gloom with a 50-50 mix with Lamia medium, and when I'm applying this I'm not just applying directly onto the coils, I'm also applying it slightly onto the weapon housing itself as well, to represent a slight bit of a glow around the area. And lastly for this, I've applied a gloss varnish onto the coils. Here you can show some of the areas, which is the little bit of a conversion I did for this miniature, which I thought would help to make it look slightly more orientated towards the Dark Angels. Again, I showed a video how to do this if you want to watch that. However, for the painting, the robe initially was blood red and the purity seal is corn red. And I applied Agrax Earthshade all over the rope and inside of the purity seal, but I didn't cover the whole purity seal, I just applied it onto the inside. I've previously done a video before in regards to painting feathers, so I'm not going to cover that area. However, for the parchment part of the purity seal, I initially painted it with Corax white. I then applied a small amount of white scar onto the edges and some of the more prominent areas, and I then used Chaos Black for the little writing scribbling parts, and then I thinned it down Mechanica Standard Grey with water. And the reason why I'm thinning it down with water instead of Lamia Medium is because I want to dilute the strength of the paint, and the reason why I'm applying this after the writing as opposed to applying the writing last is this way it helps to age the area and make it look older, and it helps to age the element of the writing as well. So if you apply the writing last, it kind of makes it look like it's fresher and more new. For the lenses and the lights, I initially started with blood red, and here you can see I'm applying Agrax Earthshade into the top corner for the lenses, and also the back corner for the eyes on the head. And I've applied a little bit of riser rust onto the very bottom of the lenses. And next I'm going to apply a small dot of white scar for the top right corner of the lenses, and also at the back part of the eyes for the head. And for the lights, I've thinned down the white scar with water, and I'll leave this to dry, and as it dries it should evaporate the water, and as it does it should bring the paint in slightly. When the lights, the lenses and also the eyes have dried, a gloss varnish will be applied onto the area. Remember to check out the finished miniature in the description below so you can see a better look of the finished product of this miniature. If you like the video, remember to subscribe, click the notification bell, and also share the video with your friends.